May I ask who's there?
It was the second time we had visited in a day, and what a busy day it had been. Good afternoon again. Is it alright if we come in and talk for a bit?
What's this? Back so soon, Miss Whiteley. Was she here earlier? You never told me, Holmes. And the point of that would be... Forget it. What do you need this time? Well, make yourselves comfortable.
Watson sported a welcoming grin as he opened the door for us.
I'm not some jack of all trades. This won't be as easy as you... Leave it to me, then. It's hardly difficult to examine medicine.
Watson abruptly cut Holmes off, earning a nasty glare in turn. How dare you be better at something than me?
And what reason do you have to do this? No questions asked. You may have nothing to do, but I have been inundated with... That's why I said to leave it to me. Now, with that sorted, have a seat and I shall dive into research.
Thank you. Permit me to accompany you. Marple followed after Watson. Wait, am I stuck here with Holmes now? I'm sorry to barge in twice in one day.
There's nothing to be done now that you're here.
From then on, Holmes and I shared silence. Oh, come to think of it. There was more for us to do than wait, I thought. I reached into my pocket for the shell I found in Angelica's room. Yeah, like, is that an almond shell, or what is that? I'd placed it there in a rush since Marple wanted to leave. Holmes was quick to become curious.
Miss Whiteley, what is that?
This? I'm wondering that myself. I fear I don't know what it is.
May I? I wish to take a closer look.
Please do. Here. I gave the shell to Holmes. It was such a tiny thing, but he still inspected it from every possible angle he could, flipping it around, feeling the texture of its surface, and tapping it. Ah, apricots. We're back to apricots.
It's the shell of an apricot seed.
That's all?
When you break its shell, you'll find an apricot kernel inside. An interesting fact. A decomposed, unripe kernel can lead to prussic acid poisoning when mixed with gastric fluid.
It's frightening to think of such a little thing as poisonous.
I concur, but it is possible to remove the poison. There's even medicine in the East that makes use of the kernel. It all depends on how it's prepared. Anything can become a weapon if that's how you intend to use it.
So a shell to an apricot seed, is it?
Success! The test is complete. We can now safely conclude there isn't a drop of poison to be found in this medicine.
Watson appeared from the back room, cheerfully shaking the small bottle, with Marple not far behind. I could find no error in his examination. He is well on his way to becoming a first-rate doctor.
I am not. On my way to becoming a first-rate detective, more like.
Thank you, Watson. Marple, Holmes informed me that this is the shell of an apricot seed. Where did you find this, Emily? In Angelica's room when we went to retrieve her medicine. I thought to take it with me since something about it struck me. Its seed contains something that's rather poisonous, doesn't it? Could she have broken the shell and mixed the kernel in with the jam? But no one mentioned apricot jam, and it's not possible to extract poison from a ripe apricot.
It's been some time since the kernel was taken from this shell. The scent is long gone. But a fresh one smells quite good, similar to an almond.
There you go. There you go. Of course, an almond! Marple and I were of one mind, her face tensed. If it's what we're thinking, then we must return immediately, Emily. Bye, guys. Are there still any scones left, Alyssa? I've got strawberry jam and clotted cream. How do they sound? Alyssa, hands quivering, sliced a scone in half.
That sounds delightful. Thank you. I'm feeling a bit better, so I think I can eat some.
Now, is Alyssa doing this? Yeah, she probably is. It's probably jealousy about... What's his... Rafus? Being interested in Angelica now. And the show of support is faked. That's unfortunate. I was really hoping it wasn't Alyssa and it was just some kind of misunderstanding. While scooping the clotted cream with a spoon, several knocks were heard from the door.
Ah! I'll get it!
Before Alyssa could even turn the knob, the door had swung open on its own.
Hello again, Angie, Alyssa. The air smells delicious.
Miss Marple. I accompanied her as she barged in.
Oh? Whatever is the matter?
We're sorry to come in like this, but we have good reason. The scent of warm tea, scones, jam, and clotted cream permeated the room. Are you having a cup of tea? Oh, and that cream smells just divine. May I have some? Pardon? But this is for Angie.
Let her have some, Alyssa. I don't think I can finish it all, so I insist.
Smart. So, Alyssa just wants to get rid of Angelica. A darkness manifested over Alyssa. This darkness, this anxiety grew by rapid leagues in the seconds between Angelica's consent and Marple reaching out.
Don't!
She let out a shriek as she went to seize the cream from Marple's hand. It dropped with a clack to the floor.
Why are you so opposed to her eating this?
Because... She could not answer. Her eyes flickered to where she could not keep focus on any one of us present. Angelica remained perplexed as much as she was concerned, seemingly aware that she was the only girl with no understanding of what just transpired.
Sarah, what is it? Your face is like stone. And Alyssa, you look terrible.
I'm so sorry. I put... Marple was the one to stop her.
I'd prefer if you didn't say. I don't want to hurt Angie.
Poor Marple. Marple leant close and whispered, a chilling calm to her voice into Alyssa's ear.
How clumsy of me. It seems I've dropped your homemade clotted cream. This isn't like you at all. Still, if Alyssa forgives you, then why shouldn't I?
Angie...
Everything you make tastes so wonderful. I don't think there's anything in this world you could make that I wouldn't eat.
At first, Alyssa was nothing more than awestruck. But soon her head was downward, expression masked by her fringe, with her shoulders beginning to shake.
Alyssa? Alyssa, what's wrong?
Not to worry. She'll be all right after I take her outside for some fresh air. The two of us led Alyssa to the dorm entrance, leaving Angelica alone in the room. Poor Angelica.
I don't believe you ever gave this cream to the students in the choir. Rafus was your motivation, yes? We heard from him that the two of you used to be in a relationship.
Because I was the one who was seeing him first. I never thought a friend of mine would take him away from me. I loved him. I couldn't understand why he chose Angie over me. I can't stand how much regret I feel for introducing him to her. I never told Angie that I was seeing him, so perhaps I'm at fault, but I didn't imagine he would come to fancy her. For what felt like the first time, Alyssa looked directly at us, eyes glossed over from tears that had yet to fall. I could take him back if Angie were absent. That's what I told myself. I didn't think on it too hard in the beginning. I imagined how much easier it would be to get him alone when she was bedridden.
And that didn't go as planned.
She's all he ever talks about. Every single day she's been away, it's Angie, Angie, Angie. They just grew closer and closer.
Still, that isn't enough.
I knew I was wrong, but I couldn't stop myself. I couldn't. Alyssa collapsed and broke into heavy sobs.
Angie is a sweet girl. She's innocent and bright, even to me. Had you spoke of the nature of your relationship with him, things might have gone a different route. You should know that with the route you chose, Angie may have died.
No one in this world can stop two people from falling in love. By the time I considered talking to her, it was too late. How pitiful would I have looked when they were already in love? I know I did something unforgivable. But please, please, please don't tell anyone about what I did. If Angie and Rafus knew about this, they would hate me.
But what you did was clearly attempted murder. Do you realize that?
I didn't mean to. I didn't think that far ahead. Please, I'm begging you to keep it secret.
All she could do was cry some more, and beg. I wonder if the solving of this will go differently depending on those last two questions I picked as Emily before we got into the mystery part of the game. Because I picked law-abiding choices instead of going with my heart. So I wonder if Emily's gonna be like, you gotta go to jail now. You almost killed a girl. But if we're with Watson, if it'll be more like, well, the heart wants what the heart wants. It'll be interesting to see.
If my mother were to find out, she would grow ill with grief, and my father would whip my back till I could no longer stand. I would be arrested and imprisoned.
You deserve it. That's payment for what you did. Is that so difficult to understand?
Please, please, please. I don't want to be arrested. Have mercy. Father, Mother.
It was neither Marple nor I who broke the silence. Angelica. Dang, she got up for her friend. She heard every word.
Sarah, Emily, could you please forgive her?
Of all the people in the world who would first speak of forgiveness, it was Angelica who was still in her nightgown.
What? Angelica? How long have you been there? And you shouldn't be up. I'm sorry, Sarah, but I was so worried about Alyssa. I heard everything.
Angie.
Angelica had dragged her weakened body down despite it working against her for every step. She stumbled as she approached Alyssa, who lost the will to speak at the sight of her.
Alyssa is she's one of my dearest friends. Everyone has another side of them, a good side and a bad side. And I'm still alive. Why, even a healthy person comes down with sickness at times. That's true, isn't it, Sarah?
Marple looked down at the floor, lost for words. In the short time I'd known her, I'd never seen her look as unsure of what to do as she did now. The silence was almost too heavy for us to bear.
Go. Me? Get out. Leave the dorm by the end of the day. And promise me that you will go somewhere far, far away from Angie and never come back. If you break that promise, I'll have Scotland Yard find you, and I'll tell Rafus what you did.
Marple.
I'm not an informant of any kind for the police, but you'd best leave before I consider being one. I understand. Please, take care of Angie. I will.
Alyssa, take care. Do keep yourself in good spirits, all right?
Yes, same to you. Thank you, Angie. And I'm truly, truly sorry. In the end, she couldn't choke back her tears as she said her goodbyes. Whew. That got me right in the Kokoro, guys. Sheesh. That was heavy. Several days passed in a rush. At any rate, I'm so glad Angelica's all right now.
I'm glad too. Seems she's even well enough to attend choir practice already. And yet, part of me can't help but feel like I stole her best friend, Marple.
She said it in her ordinary, matter-of-fact tone, but I could hear the sadness beneath.
Excuse me. Would you pretend you didn't hear that?
As we walked through the halls, we could overhear enthusiastic chatter from the music room.
Captain, let's try our parts again one more time! All right. Shall we begin with the sopranos then?
It is essential that we have everyone's cooperation in time for the Christmas concert. We can do this now!
We'll have to put everything we have into this since Alyssa quit the choir. Let's put our backs into it!
They all seemed full of life, as if they were having great fun.
Oh! I've been meaning to speak with you again.
Angelica had a spring in her step as soon as she ran towards us in the hall.
The two of you will be attending our Christmas concert, won't you?
Of course! I wouldn't miss it for the world.
And Sarah, I hope you haven't forgotten that promise we made.
I'm sorry? Promise?
You said you would cook some of your homemade vegetable soup. I've been waiting ever since, but I can only wait so long, you know.
But of course. Soon then. It appeared that a weight had lifted from Marple's shoulders as she watched Angie return to practice. Oh, how I envy her. She's living out her youth to its fullest and having all kinds of fun with club activities.
Is it difficult for someone of the nobility to participate in club activities?
Unfortunately.
Listen, Emily. There are more ways than one to live life to its fullest. For a start, since it's such a pretty day, what would you say to having a cup of tea whilst we listen to the choir?
Her cheeks flushed as the corners of her mouth curled modestly. Did you bake scones by any chance?
How did you know? I've got jam, cream, and tea. Well?
How could I say no? I'll have one of everything, please. I was reminded of when I had visited Angelica once alone, since I was worried about her after all that happened. Marple's name had come up in conversation.
Sarah says what comes to mind so directly that many find her to be callous. But she has a keen sense for how others feel, and is equally true to herself. I'm a bit unrefined and insensitive, you know, but Sarah's always taken the time to look after me. I know you and Sarah will become fast friends. I've not seen her smile the way she was when the two of you had tea together in forever.
She must be so happy to be wearing such a beautiful smile. But could Marple really be so misunderstood? I hadn't intended to let that one slip.
What's this about misunderstanding me?
That would be a secret. Now, shall we lunch? As I reached for a scone...
Don't!
I felt an iron grip upon my wrist. Marple? Given recent events, my heart gave a bold thump.
Emily, I urge you to wipe your hands with this napkin before eating.
You're always so thorough, aren't you?
I should think so. I learned from my grandmother to always mind my table manners. Keep your hands clean and be certain to finish everything on your plate.
Like before, Marple handed me a petite napkin.
Angie is more engrossed in her club activities than ever. I miss her.
If you miss her, then how would you like to look after me in her place? I'd love to learn all that you've learned. And I should like to keep having tea together with you like this, if it's all right.
Well, I'll give it some thought.
Marple elegantly wiped her hands and reached for a scone. With the case now solved, it was nice to be able to return to daily life again, And through the experience, Marple and I had grown a little closer as well. And we grew closer with Holmes. Look at that moon! I spoke with Pendleton that evening, as I always did. Thank you for dinner. It was very tasty.
My lady, what's gotten into you?
Pendleton possessed a dubious brow as he brought me milk tea.
You declared with gumption that you could eat anything and survive, but here you are, behaving true to the definition of elegance. Did you eat something rotten?
I did not. I always behave like this. But I feel I've realized something from what's happened recently. How murder can be motivated even by the most petty of emotions. I thought that I should make a stronger effort to appreciate the meals prepared for me. It's something one normally takes for granted.
Well, well. It appears you've realized two things.
More than two. Ever since I've been attending the academy, I've discovered something new each and every day.
That warms my heart to hear. A good thing, too, as my heart was broken utterly upon sending you off.
You? A broken heart? You're being dramatic.
Far from it. I fear I may have understated my grief. Why, on your first day of school, I suffered agony equal to that of hacking away at one's midsection and scraping out all viscera.
I cannot imagine how painful that would be, so understated it will remain. I daintily sipped my milk tea. Moving on. It was the middle of the night, and all of the servants had long gone to sleep. The night was so still that I could hear the owls outside hooting as I sat at my desk. Before me, there were books and my diary. This was my private time, and using it as such had long been a part of my daily routine. Or so was the case until recently, but so much had been happening lately that it had become partially forgotten. Still, now I'd remembered, perhaps I should take some time to myself before calling Pendleton. So what's it to be this evening? I feel like this is going to be a choice. What are my options? Like, book? Diary? Yeah, what are my options? What shall I do? I mean, I think Holmes always reads, so I'll read. I think Holmes is more one to, like, take in knowledge, and Watson's the writer. So, probably do more writing when we're on Watson's route, I think. Perhaps I should read a book. I thumbed through a thick picture book that happened to be resting on the table. Encyclopedia of Toxicology. I'd asked to borrow it from Holmes and Watson after the case with Angelica. So many seemingly innocuous things, like the apricot kernel from today's case, can be used as a weapon. I opened to a particularly interesting page and began to read. Encyclopedia of Toxicology. An encyclopedia borrowed from Holmes, not for the faint of heart. I'm a bit exhausted. Perhaps I should head straight to bed. My eyes absent-mindedly wandered towards a painting. It was a massive one, which hung on the wall of my room. Oh. Mom and Dad. It was the only thing that reminded me what my family was like. My childhood had almost completely faded away by now. Without it, I doubted I could even recollect my parents' faces. This painting was commissioned when I was only 4 years old. The same year that happened. It's such a pleasant, beautiful painting to admire. Every time I set eyes upon it, it helped to convince me a little more that I knew what they were like beyond vague, fading memories. I didn't know the meaning behind it at the time, but now I knew that both of them had had Her Majesty's rings bestowed upon them. Oh, can you see that in the picture? You can! Wow. That's a cool detail. The room in the painting was the former living room. It had long since burnt down. How did I know there was going to be a fire involved? There's always a fire with these things. Continue. The mansion I currently resided in was built to resemble the previous one on the outside, but the inside would never quite be the same. This painting symbolized one of my truest, most precious memories. At the same time, it served as a reminder to never stop seeking my mother and father's murderer. Ooh! Alright, we got an overarching motivation for our heroine. Alright, very interesting.
Her Majesty said that she had been helped by my mother, that my mother was a woman who would come to anyone in need. I think such steadfast trust was why she gave the same ring to her that I have now. I became fixed on the ring as I continued to reach further back into my memories. They were vague in many ways, perhaps parts true and others untrue, but who alive can recall their girlhood days with the clarity of the present? Until I was 4 years old, I lived in London with my mother and father. It was a windy night. So windy, in fact, that I could hear it howling from my bed. Very suddenly, I heard a strange sound coming from the next room. I crept outside, opened the door to peek in, and saw everything. Mother and father were still. There, a man pulled a knife from my mother's chest with a wretched squelch. I felt someone grasp my trembling hand. It was Pendleton, who was the family butler even back then. He covered my mouth to keep me from screaming as he carried me out of the mansion. It wasn't long before it caught fire. All the papers the next morning reported them as having burnt to death in the blaze. But I knew. I saw a man. I saw his knife. I absconded to an old house in the countryside. It was thanks to the land, Pendleton's tireless care, and the kindness of our neighbors that my closed heart gradually healed. I would bore a hole at that painting on the wall every single night when I lived there, thinking, why? Why were mother and father gone? Why were they murdered? And every single time I asked myself those things, my desire to go back to London and find the man behind that knight grew with a fever. All those thoughts filled me to the point of overflowing as I clung to the pendant my mother bequeathed me upon her death. Family portrait. The only portrait of my family I possess. It once belonged to father. Oh, and that was the end of that one. Ooh, boy.